Yes, you know, we talk a lot about growth in Holly Springs, but it's really a regional phenomenon. And what we like this map here, and this map has shown up a couple of times over the last, probably the last 12 months, and it shows the fastest growth regions from a population standpoint in North Carolina. And as you can see where that star is, that's where Holly Springs is located. And we're just, you know, embedded in a region that has experienced unprecedented growth, along with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, and actually the fastest growing area in the state in terms of the percentage of population growth is actually Brunswick County down there and the Wilmington area. We generally show this slide off our presentation just to show how the town has continued to grow through the years. As you can see, in 1990, we had less than 1,000 people that lived in Holly Springs based on the 1990 census. The total tax base in the town of Holly Springs in 1990 was less than $25 million. 20 years ago, and I will ask you to, I'll be referencing 20 years ago. If you'll look around 1995, 1996, if you'll see what our population was, you know, between 3,000 and 6,000. So just, I'd say a nice round number, you know, at that point in time, around 1996 was probably around 4,000 people lived here. And I will be, that's not a test question, but it's relevant because we will be going back in just a few minutes. This shows the continued growth in our single-family building permits, and it shows that we have really about a 15-year running average of 445 new single-family homes being constructed on average. Last year, we outpaced that number by 600. You know, we were up to 657 homes. This year, we're on pace to be a little bit above that number as well. I think we're going to be close to 700 this year. You see some periods of time that coincide and reflect when we were in the certainly during the recession years around 2008, 2009, when those housing starts really drop. They picked back up really pretty definitively about 6 months prior to the completion of the 540. And ever since, they've been really strong in this area. This slide we like to show because it does reflect the most recent revaluation. And it just shows the growth in our tax base and the change that we've undergone just in the last few years. As I mentioned, in 1990, our total tax base was less than $25 million, and now it's over $4 billion. And we will do probably $20 million in added tax base per month in the town when you look at the residential and the commercial growth as well. What that's enabled us to do is keep our taxes, we've been able to actually lower the tax rate a little bit this year from 43.5 cents to 43.25. Certainly not a huge drop, but with all of the infrastructure that we're putting in place, and when we're trying to improve the levels of service that our citizens have come to expect, because of this growth, we're able to keep that tax rate where it is. Really want to focus most of the rest of the presentation on the town projects, because that's really where the operations budget, that's the day-to-day stuff. You know, those are they're important things, but they're not necessarily as exciting from the public perspective. Although if we're not doing those things, then the public tends to get excited. But these town projects, we're literally building a town, and we have been doing so probably for over 25 years. And I think Ham, you would probably agree with that. Those of you that have been here with the town for a number of years, and I know there are a number of you out there that have lived in this town for 20, 25 years or more, and you've seen the dramatic change that has taken place and continues to take place. So this is a pretty busy looking chart, but we wanted to touch on the various transportation projects which are either under construction or under design, or we call them on the horizon. They're projects on the horizon. They're very preliminary, but they will take place in the future. The first one there, and they're not really in any particular order, but number one, Sportsmanship Way. That's at the North Main Athletic Complex, and if you notice Sportsmanship Way right now, it runs off of Main Street, but it does not connect with the bypass. We have been able to secure a grant from DOT. That's an 80% grant, and that to go ahead and make that connection. And that's going to have some regional significance because it's really going to help traffic flow, particularly in the morning and afternoon commuter traffic. It'll be yet another outlet for people who live in Holly Springs that want to get on the bypass. Right now, the majority of them would have to go down West Holly Springs Road. They'll be able to use Sportsmanship Way as a connection point. Our staff made the case to DOT about the significance of that. DOT agrees, and we've been able to get funding for that project. We're still looking at, maybe a couple years before you see that completed. I think probably we're looking at around 2017 on that particular project because it's just now under design, and we'll need to obtain permits, and the design does take some time. The next item is synchronized signal system, and that's along the existing bypass where the super streets are in place, and from time to time, we've gotten, we do get complaints about the super streets, as they're called. We're calling them synchronized signal system because DOT is now requiring the developer, and the developer has agreed, the Holly Springs Town Center developer has agreed to install a internet fiber connection to each of those super street signals so that they'll be properly synchronized to more effectively move traffic. That system should be operational next month, so you should see significant improvement in the flow of traffic along that section of the bypass. DOT's previously they were constantly having to make adjustments, and now once it becomes part of the fiber network, they'll be able from a remote location to make adjustments as needed based on traffic patterns at the time. Rogers Street Extension, that's in our downtown area. That's one of our on the horizon type projects. Valentine Street runs between Main Street next to Town Hall and connects, it's really the street that runs by the Library Cultural Center, if everyone's familiar with it. The next street that currently connects between Valentine and Aiden Ferry is Elm Street. Rogers Street would be the town has an existing right of way. We plan to build another street essentially in between Valentine and Elm Street. Why are we doing that? It'll really improve traffic flow in our downtown area. And what we're looking at right now and investigating is making Elm Street a one-way street. And Rogers Street would also be one-way, and we're looking at converting Valentine Street to one-way as well. Center Street is currently, that runs by My Way Tavern, it's a one-way street, and it goes from Main Street to Avent Ferry. Valentine would move from Avent Ferry to Main. Rogers would go Main to Avent Ferry, so it's an alternating pattern. We feel like it'll move traffic more efficiently through our downtown, but it'll also make it easier for development to occur along those blocks. Because if you drive, when we've looked at that downtown area for years, we've been looking at ways to make it more attractive to development. One of the things that we found, one of the challenges, is that most of those connector streets are relatively narrow, but yet they carry a lot of traffic. And there's really no opportunity or very limited opportunity with it being two-way traffic along those connector streets. Converting them from one way, you'll have one lane that's effectively wider, and there may be some opportunities for small street parking as those areas develop. So that's on the horizon. That's a town-funded project. Avent Ferry bypass intersection improvements. That project is now under construction. That's the project that we've been talking about for a number of years. That one's slated for completion this year. We're optimistic that that's going to happen. Hopefully by November, the contractor, Fred Smith Construction, is under contract to have that portion of the Agent Ferry Bypass Intersection project completed by November of 2016. That will dramatically improve congestion. That will probably do as much as anything to improve congestion at the Agent Ferry 55 bypass intersection. And we've got, I was asked earlier about, do we have some maps that could show more specifically how that intersection would function. We've had charrettes before. We've invited the public down. If you're still interested in seeing how that intersection or the South Main Street extension are going to function, I believe you can go online and you can look at maps, and if you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. We don't mind meeting with you and sitting down and going over that with you and pulling out maps. Yeah, that will really help that intersection. I think it really, our residents are affected by it, particularly in the morning and the afternoon because of that congestion. What most people don't know, DOT's done traffic analysis at that intersection, and 75% of that traffic originates from outside of Holly Springs. And what we're tasked with is trying to better manage that peak flow so that we can move people in and out of that intersection more quickly. Grigsby Avenue improvements, that's another project on the horizon. That is a state road. That's the road, for those of you that may not be as familiar with that name, that takes you to Suggs Park. It runs by Womble Park right now. At this point, you can get on it off of Raleigh Street. That is a DOT road, and it, quite frankly, is in poor condition. The town is looking at taking over the maintenance of that street, but before we do so, we're negotiating with DOT to go ahead and make certain improvements because they let it degrade to the point to where right now it would cost us probably $300,000 to $500,000 to bring it up to the standard that it needs to. But we're negotiating with DOT. If they'll bring it up to an acceptable standard, then the town will take over the responsibility in the future and hopefully be able to keep it in good condition. Already touched on the Avent Ferry. Well, actually, no, this is another one. Avent Ferry 4-lane bypass. Now, that's another on the horizon project, but it's one that's going to happen. We received a grant from DOT once again. And what that is, we're looking at 4-lane from the bypass along Avent Ferry to Piney Grove Boulevard. And also, it's not on this list, we've also got been able to secure grant funding from DOT to 4-lane the remainder of Avent Ferry out to Cass Holt Road, which is where the school intersection is. So the town, DOT contacted us and said, look, if we fund that project, we'll fully fund it if the town of Holly Springs will administer it. And we'll handle it with our staff. And of course, we jumped on that opportunity because that would be huge. It's important from a safety standpoint, also moving traffic. And each of you is probably aware there's quite a bit of development interest and activity in that area, so the traffic's not going to it's going to increase. And the traffic coming in from Piney Grove, Wilburn, from Hartmann County is going to continue to increase as well. So we're trying to stay ahead of this as much as we can. The Main Street projects, the last one that I have listed here, we've got listed here, that should be completed in 2017. That's one where Ralph Stevens Road will become part of our Main Street, and we will be connecting to Piney Grove Wilburn so that morning commuter traffic can exit off of Piney Grove Wilburn rather than getting on Avent Ferry and congesting that intersection. And that will take about 30% of the traffic based on some studies that we've done off of that intersection as well. So that's our most congested intersection. And based on the analysis that we've done, and we've certainly heard from our residents that something needs to be done. And we feel like relief is definitely going to be on the way. One of the things that I think most folks probably aren't aware of, and unless you work for the town, unless you've been involved in a project like this, it's amazing how long these projects take to complete. That Main Street Extension project, it says it will be completed in 2017. We started with discussions, we initiated discussions with DOT in 2007. We identified then, 10 years ago, that there was going to be there was a need for traffic improvements and that there was congestion at that intersection. The town at the time was probably less than half the size it is today. So At the time, DOT didn't feel, you know, they weren't completely buying in, but they understood that there was going to be continued growth in this area, and they still had to secure funds. So we were eventually able to make that case, and it was a regional project. We got the support of our neighbors from Fuquay and also from Anger to support this project, and with the leadership of our mayor, who was I think at the time was co-chair on the transportation committee, and they determined how some of these funds are allocated for projects. We were able to get that project funded as well. But from its inception to the completion, we're looking at about a 10-year period of time. So I point that out because it's extremely important that we get out in front of these, that we identify needs, and that we communicate those needs and start making the case today for needs that are going to become much more apparent over the next 5 to 10 years. We also have a number of sidewalks that we're working on in town. Probably the one at the top, that's one that we're getting ready to start the design for and get and acquiring right of way for if there's a need to obtain additional right of way, and that's from the Oak Hall subdivision to the North Main Athletic Complex. Since North Main's been completed, there's been more traffic, foot traffic going in that direction. We want to get a sidewalk installed there. Also, there's a sidewalk from West Scott to Optimus Farm Road that would be under construction in 2017. Then we've got a public-private project on a much smaller scale, but no less important in Sunset Ridge along Linksman Drive across from the clubhouse. That sidewalk is used, although it's technically crossing the golf course, it's within the public right-of-way, and the general public, people that live outside of Sunset Ridge, jog there, walk there, really pretty frequently, and the town agreed to participate on a limited basis on that project. Then we've got more DOT money for a greenway along Utley Creek, which will effectively link it's a greenway that will go to Neath Bypass, and we're going to connect our greenways on the east side of 55 with the west side of 55. That's one we're very excited about. I think that was about a $550,000 grant there, and construction will be moving forward in 2018, so that's a little further down the road. At our school crossings, we've really been, one of our top priorities, and we bring it up virtually at every town council meeting. Our mayor is good to remind us about this, and it's very important, is pedestrian safety. And the town's investing this year $120,000 in what they're called RRFBs, rectangular rapid flash beacons. You'll see those installed along the school crosswalks, and what it will enable you to do if you're a pedestrian, you'll be able to push a button, and then this light will go to flashing, which will alert a driver that someone needs to cross. So that even if they are, as long as they're looking ahead, that light will catch their attention, and those have proven to be much safer for pedestrians, so the town's installing those. We'll also be looking to install one probably at the intersection of Center Street and Main Street, right there across from Four Oaks Bank, because there's a lot of foot traffic there as well. And we certainly want our downtown to be pedestrian friendly. Street lighting. You see, we got four areas of town. These are along our state roads primarily, but it's where you see most of the traffic from Holly Springs Road to Linksman, and that's down to Lasker. If you're going north from Linksman, you go down the hill in the S curve, and that's where we always speed when we go down, and hope there's not a police officer at the bottom. That's going to be better lighted, so you'll be able to see them sooner. I don't know if it'll help you or not. If you see them and you're going to back, you'll be in trouble. But Sunset Lake Road from Lasker to Kenmont, we're also looking at better lighting that section. Bass Lake Road from Earth to Bass Lake, that section, we've got that new sidewalk there, and there are some homes being built there, and the area that we're talking about lighting is an area that where there's no development, or that there are some older homes built there, and we're going to better light that road as well for safety purposes. And then David Ferry Road from Piney Road to Alpha Park. Now, we're doing that. We're working with Duke Energy for the installation of those lights, and in part, we were able to put in those new lights because a few years ago the town one of the first in Wake County to convert to the more energy efficient LED lights. And you may have noticed those throughout town. Those have been installed now for a couple of years. I think we save roughly probably $35,000 to $40,000 per year with those more energy efficient LED lights. So we're able to reinvest some of those savings into more street lights to improve safety throughout town. North Main Athletic Complex, show of hands of any, who's been to a baseball game this year? We got a few, okay, there's a few out there. You've probably noticed that construction is ongoing in the right field section, and that's one of our, we call it our beer garden area. It's more of a terraced off area where you'll be able to sit down, have a drink, get a bite to eat or whatnot. There's also going to be a sidewalk or skywalk above right field that you can walk along the outfield during the game and view the game. So we're real excited about that. Also, if you'll notice the brick columns and the wrought iron fence along Main Street, it's really sort of a good finish to that facility. That's part of that county grant. With the travel tourism money that we were able to secure, it was $1 million county grant that the current county commissioners and Mr. Hartmann were supportive of considering, and we were able to secure that. So that's nearing completion. Mims Downtown Park, well, I want to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute, but that's a park that really will serve a couple of functions, and we'll talk about that, but that is under design, and hopefully we're very excited about it, and it will be nearing completion, or should be completed sometime in 2017. And then finally, we got on this list the wastewater treatment plant. This is one of the more important improvements that we're making that you'll probably never see. But we're increasing our capacity from 2.4 million gallons per day to 6 million gallons per day. And you see the cost there at $2.3 million. That will be completed by the spring of next year. That is being fully paid for by funds that we have on hand. We're not needing to do any additional financing for that. But that puts us in a position to accommodate growth really for the next probably 20 to 25 years. So when we were putting all those projects together, Daniel's great with bouncing ideas off me, and we're trying to come up with creative ways to show during this presentation to make certain points. And one of the things that I asked about was, what are the grand total of all the projects that we just talked about? And it comes to about $25 million, okay, give or take. It's about $25 million. So out of that amount, I asked the question, what percentage of that is being financed? What percentage of that is being paid by our partners, for example? And what percentage is being paid by town reserves? And what we found was 12%. Those lofts, that's financing. That's limited. Those are limited obligation bonds. The town borrowed about $3 million, okay, to fund some of those transportation improvements. We got a $1 million grant from the county, which represented 4%. What's key there is DOT's participation and the town reserves. DOT's participation is huge because we know that DOT's resources are limited and they are constantly being bombarded with requests for funding. Our town staff and our mayor, and I give credit where credit's due, has played a huge leadership role in securing funds for DOT. We have a very positive relationship with them, and we meet with them on a regular basis. And I feel like over the years, since we haven't been able to develop a very positive relationship, we're seeing the successes of those efforts. So that's a big piece. The other piece are our town reserves. Those town reserves are paid for by developers. Those are primarily paid for by developers. When a developer comes into town, they'll pay so much money for water capacity, so much for sewer capacity, which goes into our, as we continue to reinvest and grow those facilities. We use those monies to pay for that. So those are monies that our citizens we don't have to borrow those monies and pass those costs for the debt along to our citizens. Also the transportation monies, most of those monies also come from the developers. So I thought that was a really good slide because we've been able to, for $3 million of town local money, and probably less than $1 million in town operating money. That's primarily for the street lights. We've been able to leverage through our partnerships and relationships with others $22 million. And those are monies that our citizens don't necessarily have to pay back. And granted, it's state money, but it's not local money. So, and also with the development community, they're paying for essentially a quarter of those improvements. So I thought that was a good slide. The downtown park, men's downtown park that we mentioned before, this amenity is actually a stormwater amenity, and it's located on Avent Ferry Road and at the corner of Burke Street. Okay, it will drain effectively 24 acres downtown. And why is that relevant? Holly Springs doesn't have a lot of buildings in its downtown. Most of your traditional downtowns were built 40, 50, 60 years ago, and we didn't have the stormwater regulations that are in effect today. So if a developer wants to come downtown to Holly Springs and wants to put something in place, a percentage of their land, absent this regional stormwater facility, a percentage of their land is going to be taken up. You know, they've got to have a stormwater management device in place. So in this particular case, the town, we own property, it's called the Mims property, the town purchased that a few years ago. We've got this, we call it a regional BMP. But we thought, we saw an opportunity to make it something more, something much more. And we wanted to make it a park, a downtown park, something that would also bring people downtown, bring pedestrians downtown. So this is one of our strategies that we have in place. You know, we touched on the Roger Street and improved downtown circulation before. This is another one of our strategies. It's a multi-pronged strategy for bringing development to our downtown. But we're real excited about this. This project's being paid for by reserve funds from some of the transportation improvements, the stormwater reserve funds. We've got some wastewater reserve monies in there. And then also from some of our operating expenses we're able to roll into those reserve funds. So this is a project that we're going to be very proud of, and we'll be getting word out once we, as we continue to progress. We see people visiting this on a very regular basis downtown. It'll bring more people downtown during the week and during the weekends. It's going to be able to accommodate small events. It's going to be wired for music, so you have small festivals downtown. We're just very excited about the promise that it brings. And the property across the street from it is currently undeveloped, and there have been some, that's where Mosaic on Main, you see the sign on Mosaic on Main, and that project may or may not materialize, but there's other interest there as well in developing that property. So if that project doesn't go, then we feel very confident that another one will. Main Street Extension, we touched on that, and that's kind of Woodland to your left, and that just shows those connection points. And that project's currently underway. If you drive to out there to the right around the Walmart shopping center, you'll see where they're already beginning the road work. So it's good to see that project underway. And we've already touched on Avent Ferry intersection. Okay, I mentioned 20 years, and this, I'm almost finished, folks. I mentioned 20 years. This year we are commemorating or celebrating our 20th year of our Parks and Recreation Department. So 20 years ago, we had no organized programs or department, and the town made an investment in that department, and since that time, Womble Park has been fully constructed. Jones Park has been built. Bass Lake Park has been constructed. Library Cultural Center was built 10 years ago. The North Main Athletic Complex, of course, is still under construction. But it's amazing the progress that the town has made in the last 20 years. We're now the third largest recreation department in the entire county. We have the third most in terms of numbers of participants in all of Wake County. And I think we generate the second in terms of revenues that we reinvest into the department. So I think that just shows the support of the community and the continued growth and demand for those services that are provided. This year, we're really wanting to commemorate or celebrate as a community. In fact, we are now 20 years old, and we've gotten corporate sponsorships, and you see those sponsors listed below. We were able to raise over $30,000, and with that money, we're going to have the neatest fireworks display in the history of the town on July the 5th, so I urge you to come out. It's probably going to be more than twice as grand as it typically is, and it's pretty nice. It's been pretty nice already. We're also going to have the Embers at the July 5th celebration. They're going to, I think they're going to do a couple sets for about 90 minutes, and then you can see we've got Holly Fest. We're going to do some added rides and inflatables for that. We'll have a special event at Walmart Park sometime in the fall. We haven't determined as of yet exactly when that will be, so just stand by for more details. And as I said, Cultural Center is also, we're our 10th anniversary this year. We've just secured the James Brown Band, and Tony Wilson is James Brown's nephew, we understand. We understand that the reviews of his show have been outstanding, so we're really excited about that. That's going to be a really cool event. Get your tickets. I want to close by talking about economic development, some of the projects that we have going on there as well, because we talk primarily about, or I talk primarily about public investment. We have private investment going on too. In fact, we're particularly proud. We identified the fact that this region is one of the fastest growing regions in the state, and this is one of the hottest job markets in the country. That's why people are wanting to come here, because of the growth and quality of jobs. But what's a lesser known fact is over the last 5 years, Holly Springs has added more jobs as a percentage of the jobs that we had before than any other community in this region. So we're number one in the region in terms of job growth. And we're particularly proud of that, because when we talk about quality of life and wanting to be a desirable place to live, we talk about safe communities, public education is extremely important. Good quality jobs are important too, and that's something that's very important to the town. One project that's under construction right now at the business park is Rovisys, and it's process control automation services. They're locating across from Securus, and one of the reasons they've chosen to locate there, they were in Apex, was one of their primary clients in this area is Securus, so we're the beneficiary of that. Rovisys, we're very excited about that. Their first phase that's under construction right now is going to be about 25,000 square feet facility. It's going to be 125 jobs, and those very good paying jobs. I think most of those will be 60 jobs. And then when phase 2 goes in, and they're planning to move forward with phase 2, they're going to build a 35,000 square foot facility, and then they're going to add another 125 jobs. So we're very excited about that. And then we have the Home Center, which is also located in the business park. They are locating right behind Rodney's Signs along Green Oaks Parkway. Another Apex-based business, but they're interested in coming to Holly Springs. We're very excited about the fact that they made a choice to locate in Holly Springs as well. So we really, I enjoy making these presentations because I'm really proud to be a part of the team that has been in place for a number of years, but it really starts with the support of our community, because we couldn't do these things without your support. We certainly have a town council that shares the vision and is very supportive of continuing with the vision that's been in place for a number of years within our community. But we also, I think one of our strengths in Holly Springs is that we have a number of staff members that have been in place that live here, that are really vested in what goes on here, and they love this town. And well, I got everyone here tonight. I wanted to take an opportunity to recognize someone that's going to be retiring next month. And you may know this, and that's Jeannie Mizell. She's a young development director. She's hiding in the back right there. She's
been here 20 years. It'll be 20 years. Probably seems like 100 sometimes, but 105 adult years. But I mentioned 20 years ago because when she got here 20 years ago, she started in community development. We had about 4,000 people here. I don't even know that we had a shopping center here at the time. Was Food Line shopping center here at the time? But it was 90% residential. There was virtually, I think Dr. Silverage may have been here. But other than that, there was very little health care services in our community. And she set out, she had a vision, and she met with people tirelessly, and you just never gave up. I mean, she was meeting 10 or 15 years ago to bring a hospital to Holly Springs. We still don't have one, but we're getting it, and it's because of her efforts. And that's just one example. A lot of the Holly Springs Town Center, Securus, OFM, a lot of the businesses you see at the business park, Rodney Signs even. She had a hand and a role in that. And I think in addition to bringing in businesses, her department, she was one of the first in Wake County. The town of Holly Springs was one of the first in Wake County to decide that we wanted to have an economic development department in our town because economic development is so vitally important to us. And we took a chance on Jeannie. This predates me. She took a chance on the town of Holly Springs, and I think it certainly paid off. And really, thank you for everything that you've done. I can't thank you enough. I think you've been. I think you can drive through town and you can see projects that you were involved with, and that's really very rewarding working for the town and just understanding that you were part of something that other people today are enjoying. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Probably.
I'm going to run through these very quickly. And they will be available. The chamber's going to have all these slides. So if you want to use them at some venue, help yourself. I also do get on the road and do this dialogue because I'm going to introduce you to some real important things that we need to be talking about in Wake County. This is where I usually start. I mean, this is probably one moments and times, accolades per week, and we get more and more of those for this county and all our 12 municipalities every week. And as you know, we had 1 million population in Wake County in 2014. We are growing about 64 people a day in the county. That's an average, 64 people per day. Think about that, 21 from natural increase. That's the number of births minus the deaths. And that's about the size of the kindergarten class. The other 43 are coming in from net migration. We are, nationally, of counties over 1 million in population, we are number 2. We're right behind Travis County, Texas, and just above Charlotte and Orlando. So that's a growth rate that you're seeing there from 2010 to 2015. Now that we're seeing our numbers even increasing at a much faster level, I think we may be number 1. Is that a distinction we want to have or not? I mean, these are community decisions there, and these are things that are very important. But we also want to make sure that we're ready for the growth we're seeing. And it's 64 people a day. So when we look at that growth rate, it's about 250,000 people in 10 years. So I created this map to kind of exemplify what that 250,000 people is. And this is the current population of Apex, Cary, Holly Springs, and Morrisville. So in 10 years, that is the growth that we can expect from the county. It's pretty striking, isn't it? And we're expected to hit 2 million people in 2054. So where's that growth going? This is a heat map, and this is, we recently updated this. This is only residential and commercial building permit concentrations in the county and throughout all our municipalities from January through April 2016. But this map looks very familiar to the other ones that we've been doing over time. The more red the area and yellow, the more permits are being pulled. So you can see that the western side of the county is the highest growth. A lot more happening as well in the southern part, but also up in Rollsville and Lake Forest as well. That doesn't discount the amount of permits that are being pulled in Raleigh and out that eastern 64 corridor as well. It is happening every place, and there's a lot of demand. So when we're looking at that population, we also have to be mindful of about 37% of those living in Wayne County are renting, and that number is growing. And so what is important to the county, since we are responsible for providing human services, is what are some of those numbers that go along with that. And so we look at cost burden households. These are households where they're spending more than 30% of their income on their housing. And those numbers are fairly striking. That's why we're hearing a lot of discussion these days on affordable housing, because affordability, as we become more and more prosperous in the county, is also shrinking. 49% of renters and 19% of owners. So we're also very mindful of poverty in this county, and poverty is growing in Wayne County. Today, we have 120,000 individuals in the county who are living below the federal poverty level. If I go to 200% of that federal poverty level, that number grows to 266,000 individuals over the just over 1 million folks. And what this map shows, and what's important, and I kind of really like maps, and I like to watch where populations also move over time, because it is very instructive to us on where we should be supplying many of our services. And you can see the darker the area, the more that we have in those areas. And so this is important in our discussion. This is a new chart that we've developed, and it's economic health by block group. This is actually looking at the percent of persons living between 100 and 200% of the poverty rate, those percentage on food stamps, spending more than 30% of their income, either on rental or mortgage, and median household by block groups. So you can see the west side looks different than the east side, and that's very important to know. So as we start talking about, again, providing services, we're going to provide services to the entire county, but we also need to be able to target certain populations in certain areas where we know that the needs are more acute. This is a vulnerability profile. This is, again, another indicator, and it's watching the populations. Both these, all these maps are now syncing up pretty nicely, and we'll watch how they go over time. What we have seen, and I didn't have it in the shorter presentation, but when I looked at this map over the past 6 years, or in the past 6 years, and fast forward, the colors change. And where there was some red and yellow on the western side, it's no longer there, because most of that growth is on the other part of the county. So we've got some other needs that fit right in here. This is hunger. About 14% of our population is food insecure. And what food insecurity means is you cannot count on where your next meal is coming from. Doesn't mean you're starving all the time, but it means you could be. And I don't like to use the percentages because it's too easy for people to understand. So when we say 14% of our population, that's 133,000 individuals in our county. And we know in Wayne County Public Schools, you've got about 54,000 students that qualify for free and reduced lunch. Another area where the need is growing, that I would like to see that need just absolutely diminish, is in child welfare. We are seeing an increase of about 36% between 2010 and 2015 in the number of children in foster care. These are kids that are definitely in need. And, you know, one of the county services that we provide is child protective services, and some of my employees have to go out on a daily basis and remove children from their families. That is an awesome responsibility. Very, very difficult. We better do it right. Added some money in this year's budget in order to add more staff, because I want to make sure our caseloads aren't too high. But this is an area where we'd like to see real improvement. And this and many of the other socioeconomic factors tied together. And you can see the reports accepted for child protective service assessments. Again, it's growing. So I want to turn that number the other way. That means that we need to make sure that families and parents and their children are all secure. Homelessness. This is a point-in-time count. So once a year, we have a lot of volunteers and other government workers, many of our church folks that go out and they count the homeless that we can find throughout the county. That number is down from 904 the previous year. You can see 83% are sheltered, 17% are unsheltered. Look at the distribution there, 77 were veterans. 162 were children. Children are sometimes undercounted in these. We've got lots of people living in hotels on a day-to-day basis, falling into homelessness. And we've got another cycle that's going. You can see the top blue line on that homeless population, and that's for actually for mental illness. So what we're seeing in our community right now is a lot of people cycling into homelessness from mental illness, also ending up in crisis in our hospitals, then becoming homeless again, and then ultimately doing something that is against the law and ending up in jail. And it is a cycle, it's a cyclic problem. And these people need treatment, and with treatment we can also cut down the costs. And we've got a lot going on in the county that you're going to hear about this next year on how we get people into permanent supportive housing, how we get people medicated so that they no longer are in crises and can lead better lives. So all of this is really important. This is not just Wake County. This is being seen on a national level. We've got a lot of homeless beds, thanks to a lot of our nonprofit providers, but there's more to do here. We need to do more of a centralized intake, identify services for people, get them into our shelters, and then get them into some sort of permanent housing. We've got a lot of staff working on this. It's, you can see that number there, about 4,700 people are homeless in Wake County each year. And again, those are numbers that are really, really hard to count. Mental health. This is a very interesting chart. About maybe 18 months ago, I was notified that Wake Med Hospital went on diversion because they had too many involuntary commitments in their emergency room. An involuntary commitment is when somebody has to be committed to a health service because they are harmful to themselves or others. So this is a court action that actually takes that. And in Wake Med, they had to go on diversion and really captured a lot of our attention there. And so we started paying even more attention and counting some numbers. That line you see there, that blue line, is the number of involuntary commitments, which is nearly doubled in 2 years. Now, there are a lot of things that are going into that number, closing of dicks, many other things. We're trying to figure that out, but that number continues to grow. 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, there were 100 involuntary commitments in the Wake Med emergency room. And when that happens, trauma and other people have to go to other hospitals. We need to build more infrastructure to handle crisis and psychiatric treatment in this county. So you're going to see a lot of that, and we're going to need a lot of partners in doing so. Transit, you've all probably heard the transit investment strategy. The plans are approved. It's a good plan. It's on the internet. It's on our website. The Board of Commissioners has placed that on the ballot for November, so all voters in Wake County will be able to weigh in on their vote. We've had a lot of partners in transit over the past 2 years as we studied this and created a plan that I think is very, very sound. The reason why, here's the congestion map. This is the 2010 congestion map. So just look at the red lines. Red lines indicate roads that were at or above their service levels. So they are already fully congested. That's what it looks like in 2040. So the choices we make today are going to be meaningful to the future. The transit plan promotes stronger regional connections, has a commuter rail component that would ultimately serve numerous counties. Bus rapid transit, more frequent connections in the, especially in the urban core. It'll be very important to attach our transit to where our affordable housing is and make sure everybody has better access. Think about the person who today works at a job in the evening that might be able to take a bus to work, but the bus quits running before they can come home. And they don't have any other transportation. These things are really important to think about because it will affect all of our qualities of life. Because a lot of the people, especially those who can afford transportation or automobile transportation, have to spend money doing getting there in other ways. We've got to figure this out. Bus rapid transit, this is this look at what that means. Again, there's a lot more information here that is available on the website. So the total investment, you can see the commuter rail, enhanced bus or bus rapid transit, and so forth. And operating expenses over a 10-year period is about $2.4 billion over that period of time. Schools, obviously, they command over 50% of the Wake County budget. This year, I recommended a $409 million transfer to the schools. They had requested more than we supplied, but at $409 million, and out of a total budget of $1.4 billion. They have some choices to make. We're confident they'll be able to make those choices. Our school population is very large. We've got 155,000 students, over 155,000 students in Wake County Public Schools. You can see the numbers up there at the top with homeschool, charter, and private schools. So we're approaching 200,000 kids in K through 12 in this county. We're also responsible for providing funding for a portion of Wake Technical Community College. They are fast growing. We've got some good planning ongoing with them to see how their future is going to continue to look. School construction is happening. We're going to try to smooth out kind of the big bond issues and do more of a well-planned school construction. We are not, our growth is not going to stop. Our need for schools is going to continue, so we need to figure out how to do that in a very measured and strategic manner. So we did a lot of work with the school board this year. We'll be moving into that in the future. State legislative session. We are hopeful that that will end this weekend. We'll move on. And significant competition for funding. It takes tax rates. If I have to predict, they have to go up because you can't live on the growth, especially when we're paying for schools. Right? So I've only been here 2 years, we've had 3 budgets and 3 tax rate increases. This year's was the smallest. The first one was bond, to pay for bonds that the voters approved. The second one was to get teacher pay up, and this year's is also for schools. We got to pay attention when we look out there across the landscape. The reason companies move here is because of our quality of life. Schools are a foundation of that when you're moving workforces, or when you're growing workforces, which is really the bigger part of economic development. So in our future, we've got to be really mindful of all the things that we're working on to ensure that all of you have the same quality of life that you have today, and we don't compromise things for the future. It's going to take being involved in community building on all aspects, and making sure that we're building a place we all want to live. So that's it. I guess Chuck and I have a couple minutes for questions.